It'll count down when it's actually going.
Live.
We're live. We'll see how many people are awake this morning. Deb probably won't be joining us. Wonder what time she has to go to the airport.
I think noonish.
Oh, okay.
Not 11.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's just Wally and I here today. Deb's in Newfoundland. And I think when she gets back, she's going to need like a few days to recuperate because I think she's been having a blast. Anyway, we're going to go on with the sew-along this week. And then next week, just a heads up, if you remember, we had talked about, there had been some requests for some beginner type videos, and a lot of people sent in suggestions of things they'd like to see. So we're going to start doing those on the first Wednesday of every month. So next week, if I'm not wrong, I think is the first Wednesday in May next week. So we'll do a beginner video. And then after that, we'll go back to our sew-along, okay? So today we are moving on. So we're working on our half square triangle mystery, right? So we've already talked about these inner blocks. And last week we talked about the bullseye blocks. So this first border, I had told you all along that these two borders weren't traditional borders with just fabric, that there's actually something that goes in those borders. So we're going to talk about the blocks for this first border today. So it is done with background fabric, but it's following in line with the rest of the scrappy feel. So what we're doing is we're doing stars in the border out of scrappy. Now, I don't know how much those light stars are going to show up on the camera. Do you see them, Wally?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, if you're doing the twin size, which was this layout, you needed, somewhere here, you need 36. There's 10 down each side. There's 5 across here, and then there's these 6 odd ones scattered in here. If you're doing the throw size, you need 28, and if you're doing the queen size, you'll need 48. So the queen size, if you remember, added an extra 3 of these focal blocks over here, and it added 2 more of the bullseye here, so then it would just extend your border out around, so you would need 48. So that's what we're doing. I was going to mention to you that there's a couple different ways. If you've already got some half square triangles made with your scraps, with your 2 tones, that's great. But I'm going to show you one way today and then talk about a second way as well. But what I did want to point out is I do think that when you're putting your blocks together, if you kind of alternate so that your background here against your background here isn't too similar, I think it will sort of break it up a bit. It will still look like a background strip, but yet you will see the stars a little bit. So, if you look, yes, Wally, do we have a question?
Susan Swan says, good morning. Alice D'Entremont does.
Oh, okay.
Lynn Nagel does. Nancy Steves does. Joanne.
Oh, it's the regulars.
Cossack.
Shonzak.
Sorry, Joanne.
You can't murder that name any more than I did at first, let me tell you.
Carol Ann.
Tebow, probably. Or English.
Lake.
Oh, Lake. Okay.
Yeah, Linda.
We have a few Carol Anns.
Yeah. Linda Loves the Stars and Beth McNabb, good morning.
Okay.
And it's about time you said hi to me, Joanne. Even if I did say your name wrong.
So if you look at this block, it is done in quadrants. So there's a quadrant here, 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 and here. So in my quadrants, I did all 4 of the quadrants the same. But just as an option, you could also scrap it up a bit and do opposite sides the same if you wanted to have an even scrappier look, or if you don't have enough scraps in one shade to do them all 4 the same, you could scrap them up. You could even do all 4 differently if you wanted to, if you wanted a truly scrappy quilt. So that's just an option as well. So the way I prefer to do these is you can start with your half square triangles if you want to. So this is what a quadrant looks like. So if you see, it's just 2 half square triangles. This fabric here coordinates with these outside pieces, and this square coordinates with these inside. So you need 3 of the darker color and 3 of the lighter color. to do a quadrant. So you can make 2 half square triangles in any method you prefer. Remember, we talked about 4 or 5 different ways to make half square triangles. Or my preferred method was to do easy corner triangles. So if you go with that method, you are going to start with a 4 patch and 2 of these. So there's your 3 of your lighter and your 3 of your darker. Make a traditional 4 patch. Then turn these 2 extras over, draw your lines, and you're going to place them on there. So the correct placement, you need to see these 2 opposing fabrics. If you cover up so that you're seeing 2 of the same fabrics, you've got them covered wrong, right? You want to see the 2 different fabrics. So once you draw your line corner to corner, you're going to stitch corner to corner. Then you're going to trim and flip out. So that's the way I prefer to do them as opposed to making traditional half square triangles. I also find that there's a little less bulk in these corners when you do this method as opposed to half square triangles. I think there's like 1 layer less of fabric when you do it this way. So it gives you a little less bulk in those seams. So that's the way I prefer to do them. So once you get 4 made, obviously you sew your 4 together to get your star. It's easy peasy. But just to throw a monkey wrench in it.
Oh, Elaine said brilliant.
Well, it wasn't my idea, trust me.
Good morning, Amanda.
So you can also, if
And
you
Nancy.
have strips in your stash that you want to use, these would be 2.5-inch strips. You can strip piece fabric A and fabric B together. Pretend that this is strip piece because I cut it apart. You can strip piece 2 of this fabric together. See, here's your strip going this way and this way. Then you're going to cut it in your 2.5-inch strips. You're going to cut this in your 2.5-inch strips. And then you're going to
So you have a strip of 2 different fabrics and a strip of 1 different fabric.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then you're still going to get, when you sew it together.
Oh.
Okay? So that's
okay.
instead of cutting 4 individual pieces and sewing them together. If you want to save some time in strip piece, you're still using 2 fabrics, your lighter and your darker. One of your strip pieces has to have the light and the dark pieced together. Your other strip piece, which forgive me for having this cut, is 2 strips of the light sewn together, or 2 strips of the dark, whichever way you're going with it, right? Then you're just going to slice them in 2.5-inch pieces. Slice this one in 2.5-inch pieces, and take one of these and one of these, sew them together to get your 4 patch, like the original 4 patch I showed you somewhere that I've since lost.
That is a neat idea, isn't it?
Right there. So you can do whatever types of scraps you have, there's a way to make them work. If you've already got 2.5-inch squares, go with the traditional method of just sewing your 2.5-inch squares together to start with, and then you can do the easy square triangles. Or you can do your typical half square triangles by taking 2 of these, sewing them together, cutting them and flipping them open, or you can do the strip piecing. So you've got all kinds of options there for whatever types of scraps are in your bin. So if you're doing this method, all you need for scraps to strips to sew together, you're going to need 4 of this one, of these 2, and 4 pieces of the 2 lights. So 2.5 times 4 is 10. So just to square it up a little bit, if you had like an 11-inch strip, that would work to get enough for 1 square. Okay? Is that clear as mud, everybody?
Everybody's loving it.
Okay. So, just to recap.
That's why she's employee of the day, Joanne.
Yeah, that's just today. There's a whole story behind that, Joanne. I'm only employee of the day when Karen Sampson isn't here. Okay, so just to recap, if you're doing the row size, you will need 28 to go around here and your 4 there. If you're doing the twin size, you need 36 to go around this first border and your 4 here. And if you're doing the queen with the additional 3 focal blocks, you will need 48.
Yes, Wendy, she is springy looking. Wendy Muse loves your top.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. So the one other thing I wanted to mention about is next week we're not having this sew along, right? So remember, it's 2 weeks from now before we go back to this sew along. Next week is the beginner series, right? So I wouldn't start sewing those together yet because we still have, where are we with my paper? We still have to talk about, you know, putting these together or whatever. If you feel you can go ahead and sew them together, you go ahead. Just remember that it was mentioned that you would need some of these border strips to sew around your blocks, but we'll go into more details the next time with that. Work on getting your strips together for now. Okay? Your background blocks. So that's it for today, other than I'm going to give you an update on the calico sew along. So last week I didn't have this applique, but I finally have it appliqued. This was last week's block. Isn't it cute?
It is.
It is cute. So that's that one. So this week's blocks, I have a couple appliqued and a couple not. Look at this. Isn't this stinking cute? Look at the queen bee with her crown.
Oh, that is cute.
I really like this one. I did have some...
Look at the eyes.
I did have some issues trying to decide what color thread to use to applique where these bodies are striped. I didn't want to switch and use my dark brown here, gold for these little pieces. So in the end, I ended up going with just like, I think it was called a mocha. And it's just sort of a basic, mocha color. And it didn't look too bad on the dark brown.
No,
it didn't look too bad on that. So that's what I went with. But it was a little bit of an issue deciding. I tried the dark.
I do love that.
Isn't it
like
cute?
You got the eyes.
And then
She's
there's
pretty
this
talented.
little one. Isn't that cute? So that's the garden tools.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that was this week, and then this one's this week, and I don't have this one appliqued yet. I've got it glued down, but I haven't got it appliqued. So that's the vine block.
Oh,
So the one thing I will tell you is I find when you have these flowers that have a center, it's easier to applique the center on before you even put it on the background. It's just the less fabric you're maneuvering on the bed of your machine, the easier it is. So anything that you can do in a layer like that ahead of time, I find it easier. So those are appliqued. The centers are appliqued, but the rest isn't. The other thing I wanted to show you is, I've mentioned it before, but there's been people ask about it. When I go to do my vine and my leaves, I will go down my vine, up around my leaf, down my vine, up around my leaf, down my vine, like that, so that I don't have to stop and start on each individual leaf. And when I glue these, I don't glue right here. This is glued up here, but I lift this up and I start my stitches under there. And when I come back up here, I end my stitches up under there. Then when I flop this down, it's just that many less starts and stops that are out and visible. And it just anchors it a little bit better, because then when you applique this, the stitching's going to go over that and help hold it down as well. It's just an added assurance that I do. Okay, guys. Any questions?
Yeah, Amanda Amiro.
Yes.
I hope you're feeling better. Do you hand applique or machine applique?
I'm machine appliquing. Some people are hand appliquing, but mine is machine. I don't know if Wally can get a close up there to show you, but that's mine. So I change my thread color on the different colors, my top thread. I never change my bobbin thread.
On that orange, well, on the red leaf or flower, you can see it really well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's got like a pink around it. This has got the tealy blue. This has got like an orangey gold around it. So I change my top thread, but I never change my bobbin. I just leave cream in the bobbin. But hand applique is on my to-do list maybe for the next Lori Holt, but it's a lot, it's time consuming.
Yes, you can. We still have the pattern here.
Calico Gardens, yes. Well, the pattern is a free pattern, but you need the templates. The templates are actually on order because we keep selling out of them, but they're coming back in. So, so you need the templates that you cut out your shapes. The pattern is a free downloadable pattern on the Riley Blake site. And then there is a weekly post on Lori Holt's blog where she talks about each week what she breaks down and does for blocks each week. Okay? So if you have any questions, give me a call and I can walk you through it.
Do you use a tearaway stabilizer on the back?
No. Lori Holt method actually uses, you hang on 1 minute, Walter, uses this stuff. So Lori Holt, so you can use steam a seam or wonder under and do your traditional applique where it's stuck down, just raw edge fabric stuck down. Or Lori Holt uses sew-in interfacing. So each shape is sewn to sew-in interfacing, and then the shape is turned. So there is no raw edge around the edges of these. And underneath here, let me show you, you can see it maybe on this one. If you look here, you can see your layers. Can you see that there's a white sew-in interfacing on the back and the purple on the top? And see how that's all encased in a seam. So that's never going to unravel. And then when I stick it down, I glue it down with a Acorn Precision piecing glue, and I don't have to put any stabilizer on the back at all. When you're appliquing, I just keep my hands sort of like this so that the machine doesn't pull this fabric in too much as it's appliquing. I just hold it like this as I go around, and as I move it around, I sort of give a gentle pull and keep it smoothed out. So there's no stabilizer per se, but there is the sew-in interfacing.
That answer, Eleanor?
Eleanor probably, I didn't realize it was Eleanor. She probably knew about this anyway. But no, I don't use a stabilizer. I don't find you need it. As long as you keep your hands placed and just sort of as you're feeding it through, just give a nice gentle pressure as you're feeding it through so that it doesn't allow the fabric to pull in and, you know, get puckered into your stitches or whatever. Okay, ladies, we'll see you next week. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.